Best of r/malicious compliance episode 55. Subscribe for Reddit videos daily. This happened this morning and I'm super excited to write this story up now. Little backstory. I live in an apartment block after moving several times, trying to find houses with garages where I can work on my cars. First house I moved to after my parents' house didn't have a garage, so I was a little bummed, but it was cheap. Second house had a garage with concrete stairs which shortened the garage so my car wouldn't fit anyway, so I was disappointed again. Finally moved to this apartment with a garage allocated to me that can fit my car, parts, tools, etc. It was awesome. Signed paperwork and agreed to strata's terms which do not mention anything about working on my cars, etc. I would regularly work on my cars. Mates who would bring their cars and would generally keep to myself, not interrupting anyone. Kids would run around, screaming, playing games etc., which was in the agreement. No kids playing in common area, but thought nothing of it. 2 months into my rent, I get some mail stating to cease all work on my cars in common property and my garage, and under no circumstance I can commence any more work on them or any car. I was pissed as I did not break any rules, yet kids still run around. No problem. So pissed off now that I cannot do my own maintenance work on my car etc, and one of my cars is dripping oil, so I am not allowed to fix it unless it's away from my house, away from my tools etc. Sorry for long backstory. Now here's the compliance. It's been a month since I've worked on my cars. It drives me nuts because I have plans for my garage beauty to me, but cannot do work here. I got out to my other car which parks outside and noticed a nice Realtor wrapped car with a front tire which had gone flat. The Realtor was the strata manager's. This lady started walking towards me and asks, "Could you help me change this tire please? I don't have a jack but I do have a spare tire," and I tried looking around for someone to help me. I looked straight at her and said, "I would absolutely love to help in a normal scenario, but the thing is, your car is parked in common property. I have been explicitly told by your company to cease all work on cars on common property and my garage. So sorry, no, I cannot." She looked puzzled at me and walked away again, possibly looking for someone else to help her. Got in my car and drove away to continue my day. Feeling spiteful, but they deserve it for not mentioning it to me before moving in. Thank you. Next. Repost because I didn't comply with Rule 8 earlier. Oops. Before I start, I need to make a few things clear. I work in a hardware/furniture store. The store's vision is to become the most beloved store in the surrounding area. We have 2 supervisors. One is a decent guy that wants the store to succeed. We'll call him Jim. He is the main supervisor. The other is more of a sidekick and more of a problem to me. The supervisor's sidekick seems to do fuck all in the store, treats me and others like idiots, and explains the simplest tasks for at least 15 minutes. I suspect he needs this time to fully figure out how the task should be done himself. We'll call him Dick. This store is a side job for me to help while I am getting my bachelor's in software engineering, but his full-time job. So, let's get to it. My primary task according to my job description is to stock the shelves. However, since our vision was updated, all stocking staff is tasked with focusing on customer satisfaction first, and stocking after. I work one evening, 1800 hours 2100 hours, and one day, 9 o'clock 1800 hours, a week. The previous evening I worked, there was very little stocking work to do. I took a cart and started. It was a slow evening, but I got a few questions thrown my way, had a few conversations with customers about what they were doing and generally helping them in the process, and made a sale that took an hour due to the customer not really knowing what they wanted. This meant I could do very little stocking work. Understandably, Dick wanted to know why I hadn't finished my cart. I explained to him that I had been busy and what I had been busy with, answering questions and handling customers. He didn't like that. He just wanted the stocking work to be completed. He accused me of not working hard enough. I was working my butt off, and not having my priorities straight. I feel like was prioritizing according to our policy. As I felt that I was being unfairly accused, I didn't go yes, so but went full defense in an irritated manner. This unproductive conversation lasted for about 20 minutes with him being very demeaning towards me. I may have been a bit of a smartass in this conversation, but then again, isn't the essence of malicious compliance to be the biggest smartass you can be? I asked him why he doesn't help with stocking if it's needed. Told him to watch the camera footage of what I was doing. Things like that. Finally he told me, I am here for the customers, you're here to stock. Alright, Mr. Dick, will do. The next shift Jim was the supervisor for the first half of the day and Dick for the second half. I told every customer that asked a question the following: even though I am fully capable of helping you, my supervisor doesn't allow me to handle any questions as I am hired to stock. I will call someone to help you. After Jim had to handle a customer in my stead, he came up to me and asked me why I told customers I wasn't allowed to help them. I told him that, according to Dick, I am there to do the stocking and he is there to handle the customers. All this resulted in me, Dick and Jim having a nice conversation in the lunch break, after which Jim left the store to Dick's capable hands, and both me and Dick having to concede that our demeanor hadn't been professional. We both apologized and shook hands. The day went decently. I have a sneaky suspicion that this is not the last time I will be posting about my adventures with Dick here. He tends to do this kind of shit a lot and I tend to not put up with it. Thank you. Next. I work at a call center doing inbound customer service. I have to keep it vague, but a large portion of my job is helping people fill out applications online. The other day this lady called in and needed help fixing her application. It had been sent back to her as one of the values in a particular field was just a bit too high. It's a super simple fix and takes like 2 minutes. However, this lady wants to air her grievances and interrupts me to do so every time I attempt to help her. What should have been a 4-minute long call drags out into 15 minutes because of this. Finally, since I apparently did something that displeased her, I don't know what, I think I spoke maybe 30 words the entire call. She asks to speak with a manager. Her reasoning is she doesn't have time for this and wants to speak with someone more experienced. Mind you, I've been in my position for about a year, with a turnover rate that's typical of most call centers. I'm actually one of the more experienced agents on my floor. Our company's policy is that if a customer asks to speak with a supervisor, we offer a 1-day callback first. This allows us time to research what is going on with the customer. If they refuse, we then transfer them to a manager. So I offer the callback and this lady actually takes it. This means that the super simple application fix that should only take 2 minutes, but she didn't have time for, is now not going to be resolved until the next day. That was fine by me. I turned on my sickly sweets and over-the-top cheery customer service voice, scheduled the callback, and wished her a wonderful rest of her day. Thank you. Next. I'm not one to reply to texts if I feel they don't need one. For example, texts like I'll be ready in 5 minutes don't need a reply in my opinion. My girlfriend at the time was the opposite. Every message needed a reply and fast. One time, I remember I was laying under my desk fixing its wonky leg, fitted to the wall with only one leg. My bedroom door was open and my flatmate stopped for a quick chat and I get a text from my partner saying I love you. I replied something like ditto. She then texts me telling me to actually say it. Being distracted by fixing my desk leg and talking to my flatmate, I replied I love me too. I'm sure I've seen a screenshot from her side posted online somewhere. I just can't find it right now. She then called me very annoyed demanding an explanation of the message. After a bit of back and forth, I told her she knows I love her. I know she loves me. We don't need to tell each other that so regularly, and while we're there, not every text needs a reply. She argues and we compromise. I still reply to every text quickly, but if it's an I love you text, I love you too doesn't have to be the response. I agreed providing she did the same. I knew how to annoy her with it, so was going to do so until she stopped. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. That night I received the first text since our agreement which said she's going bed and good night. I replied to her and got nothing back, so pushed for the reply. She replied to that message, so I replied to hers and pushed for my response. Repeat. She eventually sent one saying it's the middle of the night, 5 AM by this point, and to go to sleep. I replied with okay, good night, but got no reply, so kept sending it to her until she got pissed off and phoned me, demanding to know why I'm bugging her so much. I told her I didn't want to have to reply to every message and didn't want to keep getting them or bugging her for them, but I'm only doing what she told me to do earlier. She told me go back to responding to whatever messages I felt like and she'll do the same. Edit. As it has been pointed out, yes, this was childish and not the best way to handle the situation. I don't deny that, and it was a one-off. Her and I are no longer together for something completely unrelated. Rather not go into it if I can help. One thing I neglected to mention was at the time, I'd see her in person around 4-5 days a week on average, and then we'd have a video chat on 2-4 days a week. The video chats were a good couple of hours at a time, and when I'd see her, we'd often spend as much of the day together as we could. The amount of time we spent together, an I love you text wasn't exactly needed, but I still didn't mind getting them. I told her I will at least try to reply to those messages. They're just not the sort I'd be in any rush to reply to with the amount of time we'd see each other. I mean, if I received one when I left, I'd respond to it as soon as I knew I received it, but if I was already there, I'd tell her in person. Thank you. Next. Okay, quick preface. I'm in my 30s. I went to high school in the 90s, and schools had a very different climate back then. I recently recalled this, and thought I'd share it to hopefully give a few other people a laugh. Realized it fit better here than r/school stories right after posting it there. LOL. https://www.reddit.com/r/school-stories/comments/exe17l/ how I got a teacher to write 100 lines for me/ Quick background info. I was in special ed, not from any disability, but due to extreme hyperactivity, and I mean extreme. Though I was pretty much over the hyperactivity by the time I hit high school, it's not easy to get out of special ed. By this point though, I was in 100% regular classes, and just had one class a day, instead of a study hall, with a special ed teacher, who was basically there to help me if I needed help with any of my schoolwork. Because I was in special ed, I had what was called an IEP, no idea what it's an acronym for, which was basically just a list of learning aids I could use if I needed them. Things like extended time on tests. I never actually used any of them, but I always had the option. One day another kid did something, I got blamed and sent to detention. Now, like I said, I was a hyperactive kid, and ended up getting detention and school a lot, but I was also very headstrong. If I felt that I had done something wrong, I'd accept whatever punishment without complaint, which, to be fair, happened pretty frequently, LOL. But if I felt I was being punished unjustly, well, I usually ended up raising enough stink to warrant a real punishment, LOL. So I get in detention with a teacher I'd never seen before, and for the first time in my life I had a teacher tell me to write lines. A punishment which I thought had died with the 70s. Remember those aids I had access to but never used? So I say, okay, I just need to use computer transcription from my IEP, so I'll do the lines on the computer. I proceeded to type out the line once, copy it, paste it 100 times, look over at the teacher and say, done. I was a fast typer back then, 130 WPM fast. You'd be surprised what hyperactivity can be channeled into. So this was all of 20 seconds after I sat down at the computer. Teacher wasn't exactly happy with that, refused to accept it, and told me I'd have to do it by hand. She wouldn't let me use the computer for this. Now understand, a teacher could decide not to accept one item from an IEP for a given assignment, within reason, and with cause, but they cannot, by law, deny multiple things meant to address the same issue. In my case, I had, barely legible handwriting, so I had multiple options to allow me to not handwrite my assignments. If requested, they have to make accommodations for said aids. Me, okay, I'll use dictation from my IEP then. Teacher, meaning, me, I say the line verbally, and a staff member writes it down for me, and it looks like you're the only staff member here. And that's how I got a teacher to write 100 lines for me. I actually have to give it to her for sticking it out and writing all 100 lines, rather than dropping the assignment entirely, LOL. Edit. I'm seeing a lot of arguing in the comments about IEPs and when and how you get them and for what. I would just like to remind people that this was in the 90s, and things were very different back then compared to how they are now. Thank you. Next. I had a landlord in the past who slipped a 90-day notice requirement into the rental contract after I had signed it. I was house hunting, so at the end of my lease I asked to go to a month-to-month lease to make it easier to leave when the time came. Landlord and I agreed on a higher monthly price to compensate them for the lack of security, and I signed the contract at the office of a business they also owned downstairs. Landlord wasn't actually present, but one of their employees handled it. So, contract is signed and they go to make me a copy for my records, but are having an issue with the copier. After a few minutes they ask if they can text me when they get it to work. I naively agree, and head upstairs. 30 minutes or so later, they text me saying they got the copier to work, and I come pick up my copy. I didn't think to double check everything at the time. So, for the next few months I just pay my monthly rent while I look for a home. Finally found the right place, and the closing date was about 4 weeks out, so I immediately notified my landlord that I would be leaving on said date. Landlord responds that it's nice I found a home, but I would be responsible for the next 2 months rent after that as well due to the 90-day notification requirement in the contract. I'm totally confused, so I go check my copy of the contract, and sure enough, there is a stipulation in there about that. I also notice that my initials from the top and bottom of each page, verifying that I have read that page, have somehow mysteriously shifted to being doubled up at the top of the page after this stipulation, with none on the bottom of that actual page. This was because they had inserted 2 lines of text detailing the 90-day reporting requirement, after I had already signed the paperwork. They didn't notice the formatting error it created, which was a dead giveaway of what was going on. I informed the landlord of this, and notify him that this is not a legally binding contract due to this issue, and state that I will not be paying any further rent beyond this month, and expect my deposit back without penalty. Unfortunately he persists with stating that this is a legally binding contract, and he will pursue it in court in addition to withholding my deposit if I fail to pay, blah blah blah. I know I am legally in the right, but I don't want to have to deal with court to settle it as that takes forever, so I come up with an alternative plan. The one thing he hadn't thought about was the fact that the contract included all utilities, as the unit didn't have separate meters, and did not have any language forbidding excessive use of them. It just so happened to be a particularly cold winter, so I informed my landlord that if he wanted to persist with his demands, I would be inclined to leave all of the windows open, crank the heat as high as it would go, open the refrigerator door, run the water 24/7, etc. And if he entered the apartment without my permission to turn any of these items off, I would report him to the police. I got confirmation that he would not pursue the extra month's rent or security deposit within 20 minutes. Edit. Just so everyone knows how the story ended. This happened around December of 2016 if I remember correctly, and I did get my security deposit back, etc. Didn't pursue a legal option because I didn't think it would end up being worth the time and trouble, though I understand the sentiment. Thank you. Next. This is a series of short stories. Find your own way home. This happened quite a lot when I was in high school. I would stay after school to try and get into extracurricular activities or to talk to a teacher, and my mother would get mad at me and tell me to find my own way home. I was close to the treasurer of the school, so the first time I just talked to her and she gave me a stack of bus passes, and then the second time I literally walked the 2-3 hours it took to get to my house. You don't pay the phone bill, so this one was because I refused to give my mother the password to my phone. So she decided to try and take my phone. I bought her phone, so I decided to say, well, give me the phone I bought. She then said I pay the bills so I have control. She then shut off my phone, even though she refused to give me rides to school and work. She did this on a Thursday and I got paid that Friday. So the next morning I got up early, took the bus to the phone store and bought myself a new phone and started paying my phone bill. 3. Get TF out of my house. She didn't think I'd actually leave. This was this summer. She got mad at me for playing my music when I was getting ready for work. She was also refusing giving me rides to work. So I just finished looking for my headphones when she told me to shut off my music, so I said number. She comes bounding into the front room and threatens to hit me. I make my way past her and out the door when she tells me to not come back, that her doors are closed to me. So after my shift I asked my sister to take her out to dinner and I packed up my stuff and moved in with my boyfriend. Freedom finally. She then calls me throughout the night, wonder where I am and why I wasn't home yet and where was all my stuff. So I texted her, you told me to leave, so I left.